Welcome to the Creator Factor podcast. I am the host that loves you the most, Ozeal, and this is your favorite podcast mixtape where we give you different perspectives, tips, lessons, strategies from some of the top content creators to help elevate your creator factor. And ladies and gents, today we're in for a nice keto treat. We have someone on the show who I've had like an online bromance for a couple of years, watching him grow his creator brand online, which has been inspiring to say the least. Not only is he a successful content creator, but add on to author, speaker, and yes, podcaster to the list. He is driven by just empowering, a billion people to embrace a healthier lifestyle. He's an author of 4 best-selling books, host of a top-rated podcast, the Keto Kamp podcast, and has over 200 subs on YouTube at the Keto Kamp. Creator Factor fam, let's welcome to the show none other than my brother, Ben Azadi in the house. Ben, what's going on, man?
Ozeal, let's get real, my friend. I love it.
Ooh.
Thanks for that awesome intro.
Hey, I'll take that. I think that was an intro. You threw it back at me, Ben. Hey, Ozeal, let's keep it real. All right, let's do it. So man, well, listen, dude, I've been, as I mentioned, I really respect and admire what you've been building with the Keto Kamp and just seeing you evolve. And we're going to get to kind of the evolution of Ben Azadi as a personal brand. But I want to start the origin story, man. Every superhero has an origin story. And I would like to talk about your creator origin story, where it all started. Share with us the story of when was that first moment when you were like, okay, I'm a creator, I'm a content creator, I'm going to do this for a living. Where did it all begin?
Yeah, great question. Great place to start. I've been in the health space since 2008, so
Mm,
15 plus years. I've at it for quite some time. I guess my content creation actually started in the beginning, very different than the content creation we do now. It
mhm,
was more articles. Back then, it wasn't really about podcasts and YouTube yet. It was more about articles and forums. So I would just write articles for my website. I would post on forums. I remember reading "Crush It" by Gary Vaynerchuk many years ago, before this
classic.
amazing, yeah, classic. Before this amazing world of YouTube and podcasts really was taken off. And he would share things like just being so determined to find ways to reach out to different communities, commenting on tweets, commenting on YouTube videos, commenting on others' posts as a way for them to read a great response on my end and
Mm,
then somehow click on my account, my profile to learn more about me. So I did a lot of that in the beginning with articles, etc. It wasn't until probably 2015, 2016 that I got really curious about YouTube, and YouTube started to take off. I had a channel, and at that time, even to this day, I'm a big reader. I love books. You can see behind me, Ozio, I have a lot of books. So in the beginning, I was doing a lot of book reviews and book summaries and some of the golden nuggets I got from books, and I would just post it on YouTube, and there would be some comments and some views, etc. But then when I really started to dial down is when I started to focus on keto and fasting in a niche in 2018, where we rebranded it into Keto Kamp from my old company, which was called Shred Fat. So we got really focused on keto and we started a new YouTube channel. Even though I was building another personal channel, I decided to just start from scratch, new YouTube channel focused on keto and fasting. And it really took off in 2018. I remember the first 6 months, it was very slow growth. And I was a little frustrated because I was posting every Monday and Friday, new YouTube video every Monday and Friday. And then something happened where a video I had posted in the beginning of launching the channel just started to take off, and it actually went viral. And it started to take my other channels and elevate the viewer count, the comments count, and it inspired me to actually double down from 2 videos a week to 4 videos a week. And I got really invested in YouTube. And of course, we have our mutual friend Sean Cannell and Think Media. I started
mhm.
studying their work and enrolling in their courses and learning all about how to really strategize on YouTube and create SEO optimization and tags and how to do all this research before you hit record. And I took it from a hobby to more of a professional level, if you
Mm.
will, understanding these tools. And ever since then, I've been really consistent with my content. I think that is the name of the game: consistency. Even if you don't see growth, to be super consistent, because I believe it's a way of God, the universe, Mother Nature testing your commitment. And I believe my commitment was tested when I didn't see any growth, but I said, I'm just going to keep posting. I'm going to keep getting better. And eventually I kind of cracked that code. The universe kind of broke in my favor there. And the cool thing about focusing on YouTube and podcasts, which could actually be the same thing, is you could take all these clips and then
Mhm.
redistribute this content, repurpose this content all over the place, because we know reels and more short form content are performing really well. So I get so much longevity, Ozeal, with a YouTube video. And I know you do similar content. You take a 10-minute YouTube video
Mm.
and you get 10, 20 clips. And now you have content for like a month on other channels. And then you could repurpose that same content a few months later. And it's really, really cool. So I'm a content machine. And it all really leads to YouTube for me, and extracting that YouTube video to see how I could take clips and then redistribute that on other platforms.
To maximize the content. Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Yeah, man, I want to dig in a little bit more because for our creators that are in the early stages in their creator journey, Ben, you know, we hear consistency a lot, and we know that's the thing that's going to push us through. But it's hard, and I know you mentioned, you had 342 subscribers within the first 6 months, and it's just that tweaking that mindset to continue pushing through when YouTube is a thing, you see other successful YouTubers do it, and you're still posting content, and you're not catching that next level. Can you dig in a little bit more? Obviously, I know joining VRA was something that changed the way you looked at YouTube from a hobbyist as a professional. But what was the other things that you were kind of going through your mind? Did you ever feel those moments of quitting? How did you push through? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think in the beginning, I know everybody has different viewpoints on how to do this. And I'm not saying they're wrong. They might be really correct with their input. But for me, I'm just going to speak from where I started and where I am at right now. I think as a beginner, if you are a beginner listening or watching to this,
Mhm.
it's important to just get content out there. The quantity is important, and the consistency is important, because it's just the more you do things, the better you get. So naturally, as you put out more quantity, it's going to improve your quality. So over time, you want to make each video a little bit better. You want to pay attention to the videos that are performing well versus those that are not, that are underperforming, and do more of the ones that are performing well. Like for me, I started to notice that every time I had a video in my YouTube channel that had the numbers 3, 5, or 7, they would perform really well. And they know, because the audience would know, like 3 keto foods you have to eat for fat loss, right? Or 5 keto fruits you can eat all the time, or 7 fat burning keto foods, whatever it is. When I gave them this numbered list and I went through it all, it started to perform better than videos that didn't have a numbered list. So I saw that, and I just started to do more 3, 5, 7 videos, right? And you start to pay attention to things that are working for you. You could filter out and look at the analytics and go that advanced and see what is performing well. But you really don't have to do all that in the beginning. I think it's just important to get a consistent schedule going,
Mhm.
a frequency going, whether that's once a week for you or once every
Mhm.
other week for you on YouTube. And then you just get better with each video, and you start to pay attention to what's working and what's not working. And then over time, you start to advance at different stages of your content career. Then you start to spend more time on the research component. Okay, how can I make this video really good? How could I spend so much
Mhm.
time so when I hit record, I already know it's going to do well? That's going to come a little bit later. In the beginning, you just get content out there, I believe, and then you just get better as you keep posting.
Yeah, I love that you spoke on that, man, because I think there's other philosophies where now they're saying because there's so much content, it's quality over quantity. But I agree with you. I do feel like, especially for early stage content creators who are not versed in, let's say, for example, myself, in video editing, which all I knew, I mean, I've been podcasting for close to 10 years. So that's all I knew. It was very minimal, audio engineering. But when it comes to video and really understanding thumbnails, and YouTube is a whole different animal in comparison to
Yeah.
podcasting. But I think it's great I'm glad that you share that, because I'm a subscriber to that philosophy, and quantity over quality in the beginning. I think it was Ali. I forgot his last name, the productivity guru. I think he says something about in the beginning, get going, get good, and then get great. So I
Mm,
love that kind of
good.
philosophy of get going, yeah, get it moving, then get good, and then of course, ultimately by putting in the reps, you get great. So I'm glad you talked about that, I mean, because I think it's so important. What are your thoughts on that in regards to like quality over quantity? Or are you feeling a bit pressure now? Like, at what point do content creators say, okay, I need to invest in getting better equipment or invest in getting better thumbnails? Is there like a time frame where we should be looking at?
It's a good question. I love that quote you just said. I haven't heard that before, but it
Yeah.
is very true, especially for those who are just starting. Like, just get
Yeah.
going, just get the
You're going.
content out there and get
That's
better and
right.
tweak it each time. Then you end up getting great.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like the equipment and the YouTube thumbnails and the editing, I do think that is important eventually to invest in that, whether it's you investing in a video editor that you could find on Fiverr or Upwork or all these social media platforms, or you doing it yourself. Like in the beginning, I was doing all my video editing, all of it. I was wearing every hat. I was the researcher, the
For how
video.
long then? For how long were you doing it?
Probably for the first 9 months of
Okay.
YouTube, my YouTube channel. Yeah. And then eventually I'm like, okay, I'm spending a lot of time video editing. I could delegate this. I know it's going to cost money, but it's going to give me some time back to spend more time on the quality of the content. So it was a great trade-off for me. It was worth the investment, because as you get better at the quality, of course you'll get better views and comments and engagement and subscribers, and then that just increases your value in terms of, okay, you'll get more AdSense from YouTube. We could talk a little bit more about taking them off the platform and to your courses, etc. So in terms of the time frame, I don't know what the perfect time frame is. For me, it was 9 months in where I got the YouTube editor, the video editor, the thumbnail person, and then I started to delegate things. And I wanted to just focus on my genius. And look, I've done things
Mm.
where and to this day, like there's so many things that I shouldn't be doing in my business. And I imagine you feel the same way, Ozeal. I think we all feel the same way. And we're gonna want to delegate those things. There's a great book called Who Not How, talks all about this, by Dan Sullivan. But you're gonna think, I can't afford this. There's no way. I don't have the finances for this. I don't have. But the truth is, like, I can't afford not to do it. If you really want to scale and grow and be
Mhm.
super successful, we got to start delegating these things and focusing on our genius. I've taken out business loans because I bet on myself to
Mm.
hire an assistant, to hire an editor, because I know that if I delegate those things, I could stay in my genius, and I bet on myself. And I think it is great to bet on yourself if you truly believe in yourself.
How has your content strategy changed? Because we know the YouTube algorithm has changed. As you mentioned earlier, they're definitely heavy into shorts,
Yeah.
and now podcasting has got into the YouTube space, which is awesome to see it evolve into the YouTube community. Has it changed versus how whenever you started posting content on YouTube?
Yes, it has for sure. So, one thing that has changed for me is I used to do a lot of solo videos for my YouTube channel,
Okay,
and I don't do as many solo videos now. The majority of my videos on YouTube are my podcast
I've
interviews, just
noticed
like
that.
we're doing here. Yeah, every
Yeah.
Monday and Friday, new podcast interview. Now I'll sprinkle in some, solo videos here and there, but the majority are podcast interviews that I'm now actually doing a lot in person. I have my studio here.
Hmm.
Those perform well, even better than the virtual, but I still do
Hmm.
virtual. So those are the primary. That's the biggest change. I got a little bit away from the solo, and I'm doing more podcast, video content. Like you said, YouTube likes that now. They like these podcasts to go on
Yeah.
YouTube. The second thing is for sure the shorts on YouTube. We're posting 3 shorts a day, every day. So no matter, sometimes more than that, but at least 3 a day, every single day, because that's what YouTube likes. They want to compete, as you know, with TikTok and
Hmm.
Instagram Reels, and shorts are a way to do that. They're incentivizing people to post those shorts, and you can actually rank and show up on the search page, the search page with shorts as well. So YouTube Shorts is something we focus on, and we post at least 3 times every single day for YouTube Shorts.
So YouTube Shorts, are you repurposing that content and putting it on TikTok and
Yeah,
IG Reels? And
for
okay, so
sure.
you're
It
just
goes on
repurposing.
all the
Gotcha,
platforms on the same
gotcha.
day. Yeah,
What I'm curious to know, man, as a podcaster, as an OG in the game, seeing you, and when I was really excited when I saw the Keto Kamp podcast, I'm like, all right, Ben is kind of because I knew you as a YouTuber, right? Because you were
yeah.
in the you were there for a minute, and then when I saw that you were launching your podcast, of course, I got excited, and you're crushing it, dude. Like,
Thank you.
I'm curious to know, like, what have you discovered yourself as a creator and as a podcaster now? Like, how's your podcasting journey been? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, thank you, bro. And I'm impressed that you've
Yeah.
done 10 years of podcasting. That's you are an OG for sure. When I first launched my YouTube channel at the end of 2018, it was December 2018. I wanted to launch the YouTube channel and the podcast, the Keto Kamp podcast, at the
Yeah.
same time. I was working with a business and marketing coach at the time, and I said, "I want to do both. So let's do it." And he
Yeah.
said, "Choose one." Takes a lot of energy, he told me, and you want to
Yeah.
choose one and then get some momentum and then add the second one. So I listened to him, and I think it was a good idea because we didn't launch the Keto Kamp podcast until July of 2019. So
Okay.
that's about 8 months after the YouTube channel launched when we started to get some YouTube traction. And the key, I think, for my growth with my podcast is we've been very consistent. I know I've been repeating that word consistent, but we have released 2 to 4 brand new podcast episodes every week since the launch.
Oh, wow.
We're
Wow.
670 something episodes in. So that's been a key, just being super consistent, asking people to leave ratings and reviews,
Okay.
giving gifts away for people who leave ratings and reviews. I tell them to email me and I'll give you like this PDF, so
I
ethically
love that.
bribing them for ratings and
Yeah,
reviews. We're about to hit almost
it
1,000
works.
reviews. So those are things that, and again, getting great guests and having great conversations. Like you're a great host, obviously. So being a really good host, researching the person ahead of time, asking the right questions, like being present with the person. These are all things that, of course, you get better at as you do more interviews. But man, if you do 600 plus episodes, you're going to get really good at interviewing people. It's like bound to happen. And if you don't get good, like I don't know what to say. Like that's pretty rare. So you're going to get good at interviewing 600 plus people. So the more you do it, the better you get. There's like little pauses when your guest wants to say something or you want to say something or chime in. There's like little intricacies that you start to uncover. You know this, right? So
Mhm.
because you've been at it for quite some time. So the more you do it, the more you understand the flow of these interviews.
And I love that you said that, Ben, because one of the things that I've been sharing, and I share this with my podcast coaching clients, is really respecting the craft of the art of the interview, like respecting this as a really professional like medium, in that there's different skill sets that you don't necessarily have on YouTube, right? There's the camera element, there's learning how to speak and articulate your message. There's some commonalities, but the art of the interview and really respecting and knowing that it's important to get better and get, with the reps, and but acknowledging that I feel like a lot of podcasters really don't look at that. This, what we're doing is a skill set. This is something completely different from YouTube. And it does take some time, and you got to respect the craft, because a lot of people went to school to do this.
Yeah.
A lot of us didn't have formal training, but it's important to learn from the greats. I like to look at like the Howard Sterns, the Oprah Winfreys, and
Yeah.
Larry Kings, rest in peace. Look at how the greats do it, and then how can we bring that with our style into the podcasting space. So I'm glad you said that, because I love to see YouTubers really look at podcasting as a respectful, like as a craft, like respecting the craft and knowing that it takes time to get better at doing podcasting. So
Yeah.
props to you, man.
Thank you, bro. And you said something really good. You said um, there's an art to the conversation, to the interview,
Mm,
and I
mhm,
believe when you treat it as a business and not a hobby, you
mm.
start to understand that. If you're treating your podcast or your YouTube channel, whatever content creation you're doing, as a hobby, something you just enjoy to do as a side hustle, whatever you want to call it, then man, you're not going to last. You're just interested in growing. You're just interested in making an impact. There's a big difference between being interested and being committed. Ken
Mm.
Blanchard said, when you're interested in something, you do it until it's not convenient, and then you give up because it gets difficult. But when you're committed, you do whatever it takes and you accept nothing, only results. So if you're committed to being a podcast host and you say you're going to release an episode every Monday and Friday, you do whatever it takes. I travel sometimes and I tend to get things in the queue as you teach your students, I'm sure, to get some batches going so you're not scrambling. But sometimes I scramble because I'm traveling or whatever happens and I don't have much in the queue. So somebody who was interested would say, all right, I'll just skip this day or skip this week. Somebody who's committed says, all right, solo episode, let's do this. Here's the topic, right? So there's a big difference between commitment and interest.
Love that. Love that. We'll leave it there. Commitment versus interest. Yeah. All right. So, let's talk about committing to the business part of YouTube and content creation. You're a full-time content creator. Obviously, you've opened up different revenues with speaking and I'm sure brand deals and everything else, the courses that you got going on with the academy. Um, let's talk a little bit about that switch. What were the foundational mindset switches that led you into taking this as a hobby and saying, okay, I'm going to turn this into a legit business? What did that first product look like? And talk to us a little bit about the mindset in getting into that direction of the business side of things.
Absolutely. So the coach that I was working with that I mentioned earlier told me to build my email list through YouTube. And
Yeah.
that was a goal. I didn't know what it was going to lead to because I didn't have my courses or anything to sell these individuals, but I knew I wanted to have their emails because I could control that. I don't have their information if they're just listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube. So the first thing I did was develop a couple of ebooks, 12 pages or less. One was about keto, one was about fasting. and I would sprinkle it into my messaging on my YouTube videos, in the middle of a video, at the end of a video, sometimes in my podcast. Hey, if you want to learn more about keto, go to ketokickstartguide.com, get a free 12-page ebook to learn more about it, get you started. And then I started to build my email list, and I started to see that grow, from 1,200 to 3,300 to 10,000, etc. And at that point, I had this audience that I now started to send newsletters to without selling yet, because I didn't have anything really to sell. And then I was like, okay, we need to come up with something to sell them and serve them even better versus just a newsletter. And that's where we launched our first course, which is called the Keto Kamp Academy, which we still have. It's our signature course, and it's a monthly membership. So it took them from the email list to a paid course, a monthly paid subscription. And I think that is a great game plan. Build your email list, serve them, give them a whole bunch of value, and then transition them to a paid course where you could really make a big difference with them.
So you feel like those rules still apply, even if you were to, let's say, if you had a coaching client now, like you would do the same thing that you did back then. I don't know if an ebook is still maybe relevant. People still read ebooks, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
But
I
would you
think
do the
it's
same?
total. I think it's totally relevant. Something else you
Yeah.
could throw into the mix, which I now
Okay.
do that I didn't do before, is take them from the YouTube or the podcast to an ebook in the email list. And then from the email list, after you've given them a good amount of value, to a webinar, either like a live webinar or a recorded webinar. And then which is like a 60-minute, 45-minute masterclass on that topic. And then from that masterclass to your course. That's actually an easier way to get them into your course
Oh,
versus just email to course, but both work. But I think it's better to get them on a webinar or a masterclass, and then the masterclass to your course that you want to sell to them.
got it. Okay. Do you have like what would you say? Like a rule for content creators? I'm going to preface this by saying that content creators that are trying to turn this into a business see the webinars, the memberships, the ebooks, the digital courses, and we're like, oh, where do we start? And I know I've been challenged by this before, so I know a lot of creators that are watching or listening also get challenged by, where do I begin? Do I start with just one product? How big should the email list grow until I sell this product? I mean, what's the flow? I'm trying to figure out, when do you introduce a second product? What does it look like early on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's different for everybody depending on their goals, but I'll give
Okay.
some general
Yeah.
rules here. I think it's important to build your email list at first.
Okay.
So yeah, number one is build the email list. So how do you do that? With some sort of free guide. It doesn't have to even be an ebook. It could just be like a one-page document with some, tips that is relevant to your field, right? It could be a recipe book. I mean, whatever it is, depending on what your a channel is about, your podcast is about. But getting them off of the podcast or the YouTube channel onto your email is the first step. The second step would be start to serve that email list. Stay consistent. So they are hearing from you every single week, maybe twice a week, how often you want to do it. But they're getting value from that email list, and they're starting to really know you and like you and understand you, even more so than just the YouTube channel or the podcast. Now they're getting weekly bits of information from you. And at that point, I mean, I don't know what number you need to have in your email list to launch a course. You could have only 300 people and launch a course, right? And get 25% of that. That's still a good chunk of people into your course. There's different ways to go about the course. That is the next step, though. Having a course, there's a
Mhm.
a pay one time option, so one payment option, where they pay like $497 for a course that's already built out. Maybe you add some coaching to it, maybe you don't, but it's already built out. Or a membership. I'm really attracted to a membership because that's reoccurring.
Yeah.
You could serve them long term. And believe me, in the beginning, my Keto Kamp Academy was really, really basic. I had a few videos and modules, and then I launched it for $27 per month. And I
Mm.
gave a lot of value. I gave coaching, I gave a whole bunch of value. And then as I've grown and as everything has grown, we increased the price from 27 to 67, 67 to 97 a month, 97 a month to 147 a month, 147 to 197 a month. And now we're at 297 a month. I've
Okay.
added coaches that work with our members one-on-one. We do group coaching calls, but it evolved over the years. So
Okay.
don't let
Yeah.
that overwhelm your audience who's listening. But you start with building the email list, having some sort of course, whether it's a membership or a pay one time, and then you drip that out to your email list.
I love that breakdown. I appreciate that, man. In addition to the YouTube revenue, what other income streams? Obviously, you laid out a few. What other income streams were pivotal to growing this business into a six-figure uh, platform?
Yeah, there's a lot of different options out there, which is super cool as a content creator. You know this, Ozeal. There's so many ways to get
Yeah.
recurring income or one-time payment income. Affiliates are remarkable, especially if you're a podcast host, right? Because you could bring on somebody who you believe in their company, their message, and they have a product that you use and you believe in, right? You interview them, they talk about the science or the benefits, and then you
Hmm.
have an offer at the end that you have an affiliate link or a coupon code, and then you get a commission. It's a win-win. They're going to be helped because they're getting this product that will help them. The person going on your interview gets sales, and then you get a commission. So that's a great way to do it. And I'll give you an example. I recently had this gentleman named Dr. Nathan and Bryan, who is a nitric oxide researcher. So he's a very smart guy, talks about health benefits. He has different products that have nitric oxide in them, like powders and lozenges and skincare products. So he actually flew into Miami to record a podcast with me here. And we recorded about a 90-minute podcast interview here just a couple months ago. And we talked about the science of nitric oxide, why if you don't have enough nitric oxide, it's going to create inflammation and heart disease and all these problems. So the first half was all about the science. And then the second half was like, okay, what are some natural ways to increase nitric oxide? So we spoke about some free ways to do it, some things to remove from your diet, some things to remove from your lifestyle. And then at the end, maybe the last 20 minutes, we talked about, okay, you created a product. What's different about your product versus other products out there? So it was a great way, the way we set it up, and it crushed. The interview alone on YouTube has 340,000 views, and the podcast over 10,000
Wow.
downloads. But it sold almost $100,000 worth of his products, dude. And it
From the podcast?
from that one podcast interview, dude.
What?
Yeah, it absolutely crushed, right? And I get 10% commission off of all that.
Wow.
And I would never promote something I don't use and believe in, right? So it's something that I
Man.
believe in. So that's a perfect example right there. And and you could do things like that. I mean, there's examples of people who have sold even more than that. So that's one way to bring income in, affiliate commission. I'll speak about more, but I don't know if you had a follow up
Yeah,
there.
so I just want to pause real quick because that's freaking amazing, by the way. And that right there is a testament to the influence of building a brand on YouTube, and also a testament to, there was a stat recently, Ben, and it's been ongoing for quite some time, and it's been increasing every year. I forgot what the stat was, but I think it was like over like 62% of consumers listening to a podcast admitted to purchasing the product if the host was involved in it, meaning that
Wow.
that's how trusted a podcast platform is, because you're in their earbuds, they're listening to you, and there's something about listening to someone's voice
Yeah.
that cultivates a sense of intimacy that even video doesn't give you.
Mhm.
And it was, they were looking at the stats, and I know YouTubers have influence and they sell products, but they were saying how podcast is like one of the number one platforms to sell products because of that intimacy and that trust that you build with that audience. So again, the fact that you sold that is a testament, of course, to YouTube and your influence, but
Mhm.
also the fact that these were podcast listeners specifically that bought into what you were vouching for. So I think just that's freaking amazing.
That
That's
is
exciting.
amazing. Yeah, that makes sense.
Wow.
That's that because it makes sense because if you think about it, people are listening to podcasts when they're driving to work, walking
Yep.
their dog, washing dishes, and you kind of spend their day with the
Yeah.
individuals that are listening. It's super
Passive
cool.
consumption. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I always say when I'm recording my podcast at the end of it, I'm always like, thank you for spending part of your day with me. It's like such an honor.
Man.
There's so many options out there, right? So you do become friends with these individuals, which is super
Yeah.
cool because I
The
speak at
relationships.
conferences and they come up to me and they're like, I hear your voice all the time. And I'm like, where am I? Podcast.
Wow.
So yeah, it's super cool. Not even to mention, I mean, you could probably talk about this more than I can, but the relationships you build with interviewing people, especially when you start to do more in person, but even online, because it's so much easier to email somebody that you admire and study and want to talk to and say you have a podcast, you'd love to bring them on and introduce them to your audience. So much easier for them to say yes to that than you to say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain for 60 minutes on a Zoom call, right? Or get some coffee with you. Like very low chances they're going to say yes to the latter. So then you build relationships with them and they're like, oh, I have somebody else that might be a good guest or whatever it is. Oh, I'm going to Miami and I'd love to get dinner with you. It's like all these things start to happen, or I'm
Yeah.
speaking at the same conference as you. It's like all these cool things, the relationships. Plus, I'm a nerd. I love to study and I get to get paid to interview people and study people.
How
So
cool
there's
is that?
just so many benefits to podcasting.
A relationship building accelerator is what I call it, man. It's
Yes.
just, will 10x your relationships for sure. I love
Yes.
that. one of the things that, you shared, I've been seeing you, man, just from afar, again, just really seeing you take, the Keto Kamp where I discovered you, but your personal brand, brother. Like you've been crushing it. I'm like, yo, Ben is like, I saw you speaking at major conferences and, you know, evolving into becoming a public speaker. Talk to us a little bit about how the doors have been opening up to a lot of public paid speaking that you've got in some of these major conferences. How's that experience been?
It's been amazing. It's been
Yeah.
amazing, Ozeal. Yeah. I wear a lot of hats. I know you do too. All entrepreneurs wear a lot of hats. And if somebody asked me, what do you do? I mean, I could say I'm a podcaster, I'm a YouTuber, I'm an author.
All the hyphens.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a speaker. But if I had to choose one thing to say
Yeah.
that what I am, what I truly believe I am, and what I love to do is that I'm a teacher. I love to teach. I just love to teach. And of course, you could do that through podcasting, you could do it through YouTube. My favorite way to teach is to speak in person because the energy exchange with the audience is just so special. I love
Mhm.
to speak in person. And believe me, I used to be so scared to speak in person, and I used to suck when I started out. But you do it enough times, you get better and better and better. Now I look forward to it. And it's so cool that I get paid to speak, to do things that I love to do. Like just a few days ago, 3 days ago, I was in Utah at Salt Lake City speaking at my mentor's health conference. And I ended up overcommitting as an entrepreneur. You do this sometimes. I ended up overcommitting and say I would speak at another event in Miami the day after. So I committed to both earlier in the year, and I realized as I was getting closer to the date that I have these two speaking engagements: Utah Saturday night, Miami Sunday afternoon. Oh
Look at
my
you, you
gosh!
rock star. You rock star.
Yeah. So what do you do? Do you cancel one? No, you figure it out because when you're committed,
Wow.
you figure it out. So I took a red eye
Committed.
from Utah Saturday night, got to Miami at
Wow.
6:30 a.m., took a nap, went to the venue this past Sunday, and then spoke at the conference here in South Beach and did a panel right after. And it's like it was all done. Right. So I say all that not to impress, but I say it to impress upon you that when you are doing something you love to do, like I do with teaching and lecturing, you'll find the energy. You'll find a way to make it work. If it's something you don't enjoy doing and it's not your highest value, then don't do it. Don't spend time doing things that you don't love to do. So getting paid to speak is incredible. Doing keynote lectures, traveling across the world, meeting people, and it wouldn't have been for like you said it, my branding and my growth with my podcast and my YouTube channel. If it wasn't for that growth, I don't think I would have all these opportunities. I wouldn't be paid to do all these speaking gigs. I wouldn't be being able to travel the world. So the podcast and the YouTube have been tremendous for me to get these speaking gigs.
This is interesting. I want to talk a little bit about the niche because obviously Keto Kamp is the core brand that you launched, but then I see Ben Azadi, and I feel like that's also like a whole different personal brand. Obviously, that you talk about other things. You're the podcaster, et cetera, speaker. For content creators who are there's this whole to niche and to not niche to figure things out. For the content creators, like all right, Keto Kamp, but you know what about like? Do you ever worry about going outside of Keto Kamp? Like if you don't talk about keto, then you're not necessarily on brand. How do you navigate towards like that whole personal brand versus a brand entity? And any advice for content creators who are trying to decide, should I build a brand off a branded name or should I just build my personal brand? What's your take on that?
It's a very important question. I really believe that's a really important question. In the beginning, I asked my same coach that question because I told
Mm,
him, look, I love keto, man, but
yeah,
I like talking about mindset and sleep and
yeah,
so
yeah,
many
yeah,
other
yeah,
things. I want to
yeah.
talk about all of this on my YouTube channel and podcast. And what he told me was that you can eventually talk about everything else and kind of get outside the niche. But in the beginning, when you're really focused on that niche, you'll grow faster and then you'll get to a point where you can start to branch out and talk about the other things. So that's what I did. And I think that is still good advice to this day. Now, I still think you don't have to niche down in order to be successful. But I do believe if you niche down, you probably get more successful faster because you're going to become an authority in that space. And there's a great book called Blue Ocean Strategy,
Hmm.
which talks about the specific niches you could enter that are not heavily populated with these shark infested waters. So it's the blue ocean versus the red ocean. That's where the shark infested water. So when 2018, when I got into the niche of keto, it wasn't as popular as it is now. If you got into the keto space now, it would be considered a red ocean, right? Because there's a lot of competition. But man, even if it is a red ocean, if you're just so great at your craft and you're willing
Yeah.
to study more than anybody else and be authentic and communicate, you're still going to you're gonna beat those individuals, or you're gonna. It doesn't matter that it's a red ocean, because you're going to be just so good that nobody could compete with what you're doing. So I do think there are different variables there. And for me, I do have Ben Azadi, and then I have Keto Kamp, and I don't
Yeah.
know. Um, Sometimes they merge, sometimes they don't merge. I'm talking about things like gratitude and mindset, and that's not necessarily Keto Kamp related. But right now, I'm at a point where the community has grown so much that I could do things like that. In the beginning, maybe it wouldn't have been as well received. I don't know. But to just end the long-winded answer here, if you're going to start out and you have something you're really passionate about, a specific niche and topic, I do think it's a good idea to niche down and become that authority. And
Okay.
then as you evolve, you start to sprinkle in other aspects of what you want to teach.
Because at the end of the day, you are the content, right? The personality is the content. So
That's right.
I love that. I love that. Okay. A challenge, Ben, that a lot of content creators face is content ideation. And I say this was a question that a friend of mine was asked, like, ask Ben this, what about this content ideation? Because I struggle with content ideas. How do you come up with content ideas, brother? And how do you stay, how do you create the content that remains an interest to your audience? How do you curate that?
Yeah, that's a good question to your friend. Good job. There's many ways. Number one, if you already have an audience on social media, whatever platform, you could start to pay attention to the questions you're getting on your videos. And those
Mm,
could be ideas for content creation. Number two, if you don't have an audience, you could go and follow people that are at a different, higher level than you in your space, and see the comments they're getting on their YouTube channel or podcast or whatever it is, the questions they're getting asked. And you could create content from that, because those are going to be common questions that people want to have
that's
answers
right.
to. And then, like you mentioned, it's your unique personality that nobody else has that could answer that question. Even if that person is going to answer the question, they don't have your personality. So it's different. And then there's also other ways. I mean, there's just going on Google and typing in different what is it? Answerthepublic.com. All right.
That's
You just
another
type,
great
type
resource.
in whatever topic you're looking for, and it'll give you like the top 50 searches on that topic. So there's a lot of ways to do it. A lot of people get into this paralysis by analysis, where they think it needs to be the right thing, and they do all this research. And it's cool to do research, but you want to get started and you want to get content out there, and then you'll start to get more comments and more questions on their videos, and you have more ideas for content. Another way that I get content ideas is reading a lot of books. As I read
Okay.
these, I mean, I could read a book on keto or health or whatever it is, and I could get like 40 or 50 video ideas from it. It just
Hmm.
inspires me, and I'll just put that in a notes, Apple Notes file, and then I'm just like brain dumping, and then I revisit it, and then I know I'm going to create a video on these items that I've saved from the book. So there's a lot of ways to do it, and even podcasts. Listen to different podcasts, and you start to get inspired by different ideas, and you're like, oh, I want to make a video
Yeah.
about that, or I want to do a podcast episode about that. So there's a lot of ways to go about it.
Yeah. Well, I love that you mentioned I was waiting for that answer was that drop on the podcast because yeah, I think podcasting and having interviews is a great source of content ideation and content because now you're through osmosis, you're bringing them into the platform, and now you're just having the conversation. And again, you do what you do is right, repurpose the content and then create different topics on that. So I think it's another great way to
Yeah.
maximize your content creation. I'm curious to know, man. So, what does like you're a full time content creator? You're doing all the things. Like, what does like a day in the life of Ben Azadi look like? Like, what does Keto Camp life look like on a daily basis? And I'm pretty sure it different every day. But can you
Yeah.
give us kind of like an overview of what a full time content creator lifestyle looks like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're focused a lot on the podcast, so it's a big part of my day to day. So we're doing a lot of podcasts each week. So pretty much not every day, but 3 or 4 days out of the week, I'm doing interviews, either in person or virtual, doing podcast interviews, or I'm studying to prepare for those interviews, like you have done with this interview. You've studied and you prepared for it. I think it's very important as a podcast host to not just show up and say, I'm just going to wing it. I mean, oh man, I can't tell you. I've been on a lot of podcast interviews where I'm being interviewed, and I know when the host has not done any research about me. And that's not good for the guest. It's not good for the audience. So I'm either studying to get ready for an interview, or I am in an interview with somebody. That's a big part of my day to day.
Hmm.
Outside of that, I am working with my Keto Kamp Academy students in the Facebook group, commenting on things, doing group coaching calls, training my team as well, my coaches that work with me in the academy. I am doing other content creation ideas like reels and shorts and things of that nature. A lot of studying. Every single day I'll study something, either audible, podcast, or reading the book. And of course, in there's like eating and fasting and
Mhm,
exercise and all that. But in terms of
mhm.
like the content creator part of it, a lot of what I do nowadays is going back to the podcasting aspect. Either I'm studying for a podcast interview or I'm actually doing the interview.
What's your long-term vision been for Keto Camp and your personal brand, as a key person of influence? Where we go next?
Mm, I love it. I love talking about the future versus the
Let's
past.
tap it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, everything that I'm doing now is just on a bigger level. If I was financially free, multi-millionaire, billionaire
Yeah,
right now, I would do everything I'm doing now just on a bigger level. That's how you
okay.
know you're doing something you love to do. So in terms of like specifics, I want to hit a million episodes, a million downloads per episode.
Mm.
A million download, but we're not there yet. But that's a
You're
goal.
you're killing it, dude. You're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
great. You're on your way
We
there.
wanna do a million per episode, which would
Okay.
be like multi-millions per month. Of course, I wanna grow the YouTube to get the gold plaque. We're about 200K subscribers. I wanna get to over a million, and I wanna do more speaking engagements and write more
Mm,
books and get them published with big publishers. And I just wanna make a bigger impact on the goal setting that we have for health specifically. As you mentioned earlier, we're on a mission to educate and to inspire a billion people. But within that goal, we have another goal, which is to reverse diabetes, type 2 diabetes, in 1 million people. And we're launching a new course in January that's going to be focused on diabetics. And we're going to keep track of every single person we reverse their diabetes, with the goal of doing that with 1 million people.
why diabetes?
Many reasons. I lost my dad to the complications of diabetes back in 2014, and he suffered. We all suffered, and we lost him. He suffered a massive stroke and was bedridden for 9 months. And conventional doctors did not help him. It actually made his condition worse. And I see a lot of people suffering with diabetes. It's estimated that 60% of Americans are diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
Harvard is saying that by the year 2030, 50% of Americans will be obese. So it's a big problem. And what I love about type 2 diabetes, this might sound weird when I say it like that, but what I love about it is that it's so easily reversible. And I've done it with so many people. It's You're not going to be told by your conventional doctor that you could reverse type 2 diabetes, unfortunately, but you can. And it could be done fairly quickly and fairly easily in weeks to months, in rare cases, years, but it can be done. So that's why I know that we can do that with 1 million people. I know that we could wake them up and help them take control, get off their meds. And because nobody really dies from
Yeah.
diabetes, it's pretty rare. They die from the complications of it, the heart disease,
Mm,
the kidney failures, the strokes, what happened to my dad. It's all those nasty diseases that kill people that diabetes leads to. And when
mm.
you take care of the diabetes, you don't have to go through all that pain and suffering. So that's why we're focusing on diabetes.
First off, my deepest condolences,
Thank
okay,
you.
to you and your family. And I love that you are taking life and making it into an empowering message to inspire others to get healthier. And I know in this obsessive, pill popping society world that we're living in, we need individuals, leaders like yourself, that are planting the flag to live a healthier lifestyle, whether it's through keto or fasting, but providing those resources, that information that's out there, that, just like you said, we don't necessarily get that. We don't get that through formal training or education or through formal medicine. There's the information is out there, and I think that's the beauty of seeing people in this space, in YouTube and podcasting, leaders that are using these platforms for the betterment of all society and humanity. So I love that you're doing that, brother. Like,
Amen.
much respect, like, for
Thank you,
real.
bro. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
If there's one creator factor that every creator should learn, master, or at least have a deeper understanding of, what would that be?
Mm. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Nobody's going to have your personality. You might have similar info to somebody else, but they don't have your personality, your authenticity, your heart. So that's something nobody has. It's unique to you. And when you're yourself and living in your true identity, not a false identity, trying to be somebody that you think you should be, but when you're living in your true identity, it's going to show up in ways you can never imagine. You're going to have massive success. So be yourself, because everybody else is taken. And when you are working in that true identity as yourself, success is just a byproduct of that. It's a side effect of that. So that would be my number one tip.
benazadi.com. Subscribe to Keto Kamp on the YouTubes, and also listen to the Keto Kamp podcast. My man is delivering the goods. You're going to enjoy the really in-depth conversations that he's having on his podcast. A lot of great information on intermittent fasting, keto diet, living a healthier lifestyle. You're going to dig it. And of course, if you ever see Ben out speaking in a city near you, go catch him, because he's looking fly with those fly shades on, looking real cool and all. I see you, man. I see you.
I love it. Thank you, bro. You're
Ben,
amazing. This was a fantastic interview. You're a great host, brother. I'm glad we finally did it.
I appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Peace.